Hey everyone, welcome back to Closing Day. We are here today with our guest, Paul Sian. Paul is a realtor, attorney out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Paul, welcome to the program.
Glad to be on. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today. In our sort of pre-questionnaire, you would answer some questions, and we sometimes like to hear sort of the horror story of the first time home buying experience, even when we talk to experts in the industry. And while it may not have been like a horror story, you talk about new home construction. And I thought for those listening today, we're going to jump into that. I'm really curious about that. But maybe first, if you could just sort of walk our listeners through how you got started in real estate and what your background is. And have you always been in real estate, or what did you do before you got involved?
Sure. Actually, I'm an attorney as well. I'm licensed in Ohio and Michigan.
Yeah.
Originally, all my schooling was done in Michigan, undergraduate, University of Michigan, and then did law school there at University of Detroit. So while I was in law school, my mom knew a local broker over there and said, why don't you go get your real estate license, work with him? You'll at least get some hands-on experience that you could translate easy to the legal side. So I did that, got licensed in Michigan. I was probably licensed in Michigan for about 8, 9 years. Was active like first initially, and then once I graduated law school, I kind of dove more into the law and let the real estate license side kind of just sit idle for a while.
Yeah.
Then moved down here to Cincinnati area for a job. Changed focus. Was working for the government at the time. And then I was also a military reserve. I was an Army reservist. And then once I got out of that, I was like, I let my Michigan license go. I was licensed real estate agent in Michigan. Let that license go. And then, 2014, I was like, yeah, I'd like to keep myself busy. So I was out of the military, had some extra time, and then dove back in and got my Ohio and Kentucky licenses.
Yeah. And what interested you in real estate?
Just had that initial exposure there during law school was interesting, and then coming back, I guess what really kind of pushed me into it is when we bought. This was our second house. The agent kind of wasn't the best of agents, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
felt pushed into the buying the purchase. And while the responsibility is still ours, but I think she could have did a better job. And my thought was, well, hey, I could do a better job. So why don't I go back in and really to help people as well too, since I kind of understand a little more having that legal background, how the contracts work, and
Yeah.
I'm able to kind of guide the people, guide buyers and sellers on the right path.
That's interesting. While most people maybe follow a career because they have a great experience, you sort of took the opposite approach. Like, hey, this was a not so great experience, and I think I could do it way better. So,
Yeah,
kudos to you
exactly.
for
Yeah.
thinking about that. I know I worked in higher ed for a while, and we talked to a lot of people going into healthcare who had just great experiences with nurses or doctors, and so very rarely did I hear, "Yeah, I had a terrible nurse," which makes me want to become a nurse. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned the that you served in the military.
Yes.
Um, can you talk about maybe how that's impacted your approach to real estate, if at all, or how that transition was going from sort of this very structured environment to the Wild West that is real estate?
Yeah, but even in the military too, you've got your moments of structure where it's the one of the common sayings I'm sure a lot of people in the military know is hurry up and wait, and then
uh,
when you're waiting there, it is less structured, and as long as everybody's behaving, nobody's going to really look at you crosswise. But
sure.
so the military, I mean, when I was in the military, most of my career was a reservist. And so those, you've got your 1 week in the month and a couple weeks, sometime during the year, usually during the summer. I was on active duty for a year. And then for that year, half of the year, I was in what they call the administrative law. And that's more like dealing with like contracts and, management, sorry, not management, contract negotiations.
Okay.
And then
I'm sure that was helpful.
yes. And then the second half was legal assistance. And that's where you're actually dealing with consumers, one-on-one, basically soldiers, their spouses, their family members. If they have an issue, whether it could be anything from, they're late on a credit card payment, give them some advice on how to deal with it. Or somebody sold them a car, it turned out to be a lemon. What should they do? So it was
Yeah.
more, one-on-one interactions with the soldiers or the soldiers' spouses, just to kind of help them out. And so that kind of gave me a good, good background, good basis, just for sitting down one-on-one and just kind of chatting, kind of, drilling down to the nature of the problem.
Totally. Yeah, that sounds like really relevant experience, which one might not have guessed, just being going from the two. So yeah, that's really cool. So let's talk new home construction. How's that for a pivot?
Sure. Yeah.
Military service to new home construction, flawless, seamless.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good
It's a
segue.
it's a work in progress here, Paul. You know, the closing
Yeah.
day podcast, but we have fun. So let's talk new home construction. And for somebody just getting started out, first time home buyer, you know, new home construction, at least in my mind, in what I've heard just anecdotally, doesn't seem to be an option that a lot of first time home buyers are weighing in their decision. So can you talk about your decision to go new home construction and maybe define what that means? Is that buying a plot of land? Is that working with a developer? And how do you work with the developer? So kind of start us from sort of step one, or maybe even step zero for our listeners.
Yeah, step zero. I mean, going back to my experience at the time, I was out of real estate for a while. I was an attorney, but I was still at that time I would consider myself very inexperienced in terms of the real estate.
Yeah.
So my wife and I were living in an apartment. First child was on the way, so I was like, okay, let's get a house. We had looked at houses originally, and now looking at it, going back, I probably would have reversed it rather than getting into new construction. I probably would have just bought an existing house. But looked at the house. We found a decent entry level starter builder local to our area, and it was just a brand new development. So we go in, you sit down one-on-one with an agent. The agent represents the builder, and she just kind of takes you through, here are your different model options. This in this case is you can go, basically like you mentioned earlier, you can buy a plot of land, go find a builder, find a developer, and then have them build that house for you. So that's a little more complicated because there's a lot more choices, more selections involved by
Yeah.
the buyer.
Some
But
more
in our
decisions to be made at that stage. Could be tough.
exactly, ours was more like you can almost call those cookie cutter homes.
Okay.
So I think they had 4 or 5 plans, basically the layouts of the house, and you just pick which plan worked best for you, and then you go from there. And so then you select your finishes, you select your cabinets, you upgrade
Mm-hmm.
certain features. If you want, your basic cabinets, your laminated cabinets versus granite countertops,
Oh,
and
okay.
then you could customize. They would add things like if you wanted ceiling fans, they would kind of basically it's almost like you're going to a car dealership and you want to add certain options. So
Yeah.
similar situation. What do you want in terms of your heating and cooling system? What do you want in terms of your what kind of windows and what kind of doors?
And so if the base model is X, can you spend 3X in those upgrades, or is it sort of somewhere in between?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the development. In this case, it was this neighborhood we were going in was strictly like first time home buyers, entry level home buyers.
Yeah.
So the pricing was, you had limits in your pricing. The sky wasn't the limit in this case. You could go all out and get, the top of the line, everything that they have, but that would still keep you within range. And the builder themselves was trying to kind of keep it in a nice price range. They don't want to go, from say $100,000 house to a $500,000 house in the same neighborhood,
Right.
because then you run into issues with, the buyers who want a $500,000 house obviously don't want to live in the same neighborhood where there's $100,000 house, because the values there won't support each other. Whereas if all the
Mm.
houses are $500,000 houses, they kind of support each other.
Yeah.
So they
Can you explain that a little bit for folks supporting each other? What does that mean?
sure. We excuse me, as real estate agents, we do that comparative market analysis. So when we go into a neighborhood, seller wants to sell their house, so we kind of analyze what are the existing homes selling for in the neighborhood. So if it's a
Mm-hmm.
large neighborhood, they're very similar homes, similar bedroom counts, similar bathroom counts, and they're similar in value, that lends to each other. So you've got a house that's directly across from me that's worth $300,000. The one next to it is worth $300,000. Like the whole neighborhood is similar in price, similar in design, quality, and character. Then it's easier to kind of determine the price, and those prices kind of support each other. Each house has when you're wanting to buy that $300,000 house, you're not going to go to a house, another neighborhood where there's just $100,000 houses,
Yeah.
because then what you're ending up doing is you're buying the most expensive house in the neighborhood, versus where all the other neighboring houses are $300,000. That's your common ground. Everybody's paying the same thing. Everybody's in the same type of housing situation. So nothing's really kind
Got
of
it.
getting out of range there.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, thanks for that. So the new home construction. So yeah, so it sounds like it wasn't from step zero, which was okay, we've identified this plot of land that we like. Now we have to come up with some plans. It was more, here's a plan that already exists for you. And was the home already built when you went and looked at it, or they had kind of like a starter home? I guess they
Yeah,
couldn't have been built. They had a starter home that you look at and
they had a
or
model
model home.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They had a model home, and then they had a few other homes they were building. So that we did get to select. So they already had like I think 20, 30 lots carved out already, drawn out already, and approved by the municipality. So you
Mm-hmm.
basically get to pick, out of those 1 through 30 lots. So let's say, you can go pick, okay, I want lot number 27 because if it had woods in the back, and it's not at a intersection, so you're not going to get a lot of traffic or whatnot. So you can pick that sense. A lot of builders they will add premiums to the land too, depending on like if it has a walkout feature,
Mm,
or if it's, it is more in a private, more secluded area, then they can add a little bit of premium to those lots,
got it.
just because, you know, that they're more in demand. So people,
Yeah,
people are willing to pay more.
they'll pay a little more for it. Makes sense. And when you go under contract on a new home like that, this might be a funny question, but there's no home inspection or anything like that. Is it a home warranty that sort of secures you or makes sure that when you move in and a pipe bursts that like, oh man, I should have gotten that looked at?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to get a home inspection, even on a traditional purchase.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of home inspectors I work with, and the one of my home inspectors, he says even on new construction, he would recommend it.
really. Oh, that's a good tip.
You do get a 1 year home warranty, and the home inspector's point is, even if you get that 1 year home warranty, he'll come out the first time and point out things like, hey, there's this missing. I mean, he literally went into this $500,000 development, $500,000 home, and pointed out to the one of the people buying the house, like, hey, did you notice this tile here in the bathroom? If you don't look at it in the right light, depending on how the light is, it looked okay. But then when you really looked closely, you could see they were different shades.
Huh.
So the tile guy had, probably just emptied one box and grabbed the next box without really paying close attention. And so it was a slight mismatch. But,
Yeah.
in the end, the buyer brought that up to the builder, and the builder had to kind of go back and make repairs on that.
Oh yeah. Interesting. Okay.
And another benefit to this home inspector, same thing shared, is that, you know, before your 1 year warranty is up, call them 30 to 60 days before that 1 year warranty up, have them do a whole home inspection. That way, then you have, they'll give you a list of everything that's wrong or that needs repairing. You can go back to the builder and say, hey, I'm still under warranty. I need you to fix all these things.
That's a great idea. What now the critique of some of those warranties is, kind of, oh, well, warranties, they sort of say, well, that's not covered, or have you found good, in your experience, is a home warranty sort of worth the investment? I guess if they give one to you, of course, accept it. But ordinarily, is that something that you recommend buyers of, you know, just sort of older homes buy?
Yeah, I guess there's two different things. You've got the, new construction, you're getting a home, like a builder warranty. So they're warranting their build quality from, day one to day 365.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, that's the builder's, their personal guarantee that, if the siding blows off, or if, the furnace starts acting up, they'll come out and they'll take a look at it and they'll fix it under that. Then you have your, home warranties from, like you're saying, an existing house, where, you buy it and it covers your plumbing, or it covers your furnace. Suddenly 6 months in, the furnace dies. Most new first-time home buyers aren't ready to deal with such an expense, since they've already come up with the down payment. They had to pay all the closing costs, probably had to buy new furniture, move into pay for the moving costs. Suddenly, hey, you got, $4,000 or $5,000 you got to pay on a new furnace. That could be a big bite, and
Mm-hmm.
hard to stomach. But with the home warranty, actually, that would, they would cover you in that situation. And I've seen cases where, the furnace went out, the water heater went out, and if it was a good home warranty company, they came in and they said, okay, we'll get you a new one.
Yeah. I might be sold on a home warranty. You might have just sold me. Uh, so Paul, you are also an attorney, or you maybe attorney first, realtor second. Is that how you would describe yourself?
I guess it depends on the day of
Okay,
the
it
week.
depends on the day. Sure. We'll
Yeah.
say attorney slash realtor. And for folks out there sort of trying to build their team, thinking about, I need a realtor, I also might need an attorney. Uh, do folks need both on their team when they're first starting out? Should they have both?
I would say not necessarily. Most of
Yeah.
the time, as long as you're working with an agent who's been working for a while in the field, a lot of times they have access to legal help themselves too.
Yeah.
Uh, Here in Ohio and Kentucky, our title companies, most of them, most actually, at least the local ones around me, a lot of them are owned by attorneys. They own the title companies, and so when it comes to the title work, making sure the deed is right, then yeah, there's an attorney available there, and
Hmm.
you could probably even reach out to the title company, say, I have XYZ question, can you help me out with with this, and they might have the legal expertise to do that.
Oh, cool.
So
That's
assuming
good to know.
yeah, assuming the transaction is smooth, then I would say no, you really don't need an attorney when you're starting to get more complicated things, when investment real estate, or
Hmm.
there's or something goes south on the deal. The buyers say, hey, I'm walking away, or the seller says, yeah, I'm not gonna. They decide they're gonna sell it to somebody else when you're under contract. Yeah,
Right.
then's the time to start talking with them, getting legal advice.
Makes sense. Um, well, Paul, I think it might be time for the segment that we usually ask every guest the same few questions. We
Sure.
call it closing time. And uh, first question, what would be one piece of advice that you would have for anybody starting out new in real estate, first time home buyers? They're renting right now. Maybe they're living in their grandparents' basement, um, but they're ready to get started, but they don't know where to start. What would be the first step? What would you recommend, or what would be that first step for somebody looking to go from renting to owning?
I think you put it best, as building your team. So get your
Mm,
get your primary team members, is get your real estate agent and get a lender involved. Everybody should be going with getting pre-approved, so that way what you can afford, or if you're still in that process where you're not ready to buy yet, then that lender usually has access to credit programs that can take a look at your credit, take a look at your debt and income, and kind of say, okay, you're in a perfect position to get a loan, or if you do XYZ, you're going to be in a better position to do a loan. You're going to save more money on your interest rate, save more money on your costs. So that's I would say get your team together, get your real estate agent, and get your lender. A lot of times, real estate agents network with lenders and vice versa. Lenders network with real estate agents. So once you
hmm.
have either one or the other on board, usually they'll give you suggestions for the other person that you're still haven't gotten around to yet.
Yeah, good tip. Um, a book on financial literacy, or a book on saving, or even investing or real estate, that you might recommend for folks that are interested in learning more about this whole thing, everything under the umbrella of real estate?
I don't know that from my personal perspective, I don't know I can recommend any particular books.
Yeah.
A lot of the financial websites, bankrate.com is a very good one. That
Okay.
they have mortgage calculators. They kind of give you advice on saving money. Just I think probably the best source is Google. How can I save up
Yeah.
for down payments, and how can I get ready for a mortgage? What documents do I need? There's a lot of articles out there. I'm an active blogger myself too, and so I know I publish
Cool.
a lot of articles. First time home buyers, that here's the steps you need. You know, Especially if you can
Yep.
find a lender, or a local lender, or a local realtor who can help you out with that. Who's got a blog article on that, then they might be your go-to resource, because not only have they put something in writing for you, but then most of them are pretty ready for you to, when you reach out to them personally, they'll you know get step over, or I shouldn't say step over, but make sure your needs are met.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big deal. We've heard on some previous podcasts that sort of first time home buyers are sometimes, the less desirable for an experienced realtor, but there's so many of there's so many of them out there,
Yeah, yeah,
that are just hungry for this information and looking for somebody reliable, trustworthy, and dependable to help them out. So find that team member. I think that's great advice.
exactly.
What about myths? Do you hear any myths about real estate that you hear over and over and think, where did that come from? Why do first time home buyers believe this? Or Why is that still a perpetuating belief in real estate?
I guess the biggest myth I've seen is, that, you can go to any open house and, you find a house you like and, go ahead and make an offer and they'll accept it.
Mm,
The big myth is that, yeah, they'll accept it without, any question, or they're not going to look any deeper. But in
yeah,
most sellers who are, even if it's a for sale by owner, or if it's, represented by an agent, the first question they're going to ask, is this person pre-approved? If they're not
yeah,
pre-approved, then, if I'm representing the seller, I was like, well, they made an offer, they're pre-approved. What, are they even, have they even talked to a lender,
right. Can
or
they
are they?
afford this home?
Yes, exactly. So I mean, that's the thing is, especially in this time frame. I mean, mortgage rates are cheap. They're still giving mortgages are still pretty easy to qualify for.
Yeah,
In terms of your income and credit. So that, I've went to a session today too where I think they were giving mortgage loans to as low as 580 credit. So a lot of people are
wow,
eligible to qualify, but that doesn't mean, if you haven't gone through that pre-approval process, you don't know what you can afford, what you can buy. So that kind of limits you then too when you go into that house and say, hey, okay, I'm ready to make that purchase.
yes. Paul, how can people learn more about you? Where can they find you? You mentioned blogging. Let's make sure to include that in this podcast. Where can they read some of what you're writing?
Yeah, definitely. You can find my website at realcincy.com. That's realcincy.com.
Cool.
So that takes all my social media profiles are there. So anytime I publish a blog, I'm sharing on Facebook, sharing on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Great.
And then yeah, just my I've got email address there, phone number there. So if anybody wants to shoot me an email, send me a
Yeah,
text, or even just call up and chat for a few minutes, I'm happy to talk.
great. Realcincy.com. We'll make sure to link those up in the show notes and on our YouTube video here.
Appreciate it.
Um, Paul, was there anything we didn't ask you that you were hoping that we would ask you about? Like, oh, Kyle, why didn't you ask me about this?
No, not really. I think we
Okay.
covered quite a bit. So I'm happy you invited me, and it's been a great talk.
Hey, thanks a ton. We really appreciate it. I think people will learn just a ton about new home construction, about building their team, and some really good tactics in there. We talked a little bit about, uh, the home warranty. I thought that was a really cool tip. And then also bringing in an inspector on a new home construction. I would have never really thought about doing that, but you gave some great arguments as to why you might think about that. So thank you, Paul, for all your insights.
Thank you as well.
Cool.